There's something strange happening in the West right now. Men and women argue more than ever. Dating feels broken. Marriage is falling. Birth rates are collapsing. And what's interesting, no war caused this. No famine caused this. No plague caused this. It's just happening, quietly. Most people think this is about culture, or politics, or dating apps. But I don't think it is. I think this is something much older, something mechanical, something civilizations have gone through before. This is what happens when men and women stop cooperating. Before ideology ever enters the picture, there's a more basic change that matters. For most of history, men had purpose because society needed them. Physical labor, production, craft, danger, responsibility. Purpose wasn't philosophical, it was structural. Your survival mattered, your strength mattered, your competence mattered. But modern economies removed much of that. Deindustrialization, automation, service work, office work. Large numbers of men no longer had clear economic roles. And at the same time, we stopped forming boys into men. Modern school systems are built around sitting still, compliance, verbal skill, emotional regulation. They reward traits that develop earlier in girls and punish traits more common in boys: physicality, risk, competition, kinetic learning. Boys fall behind early, disengage early, and many never fully recover. So by the time ideology even arrives, a large number of men already lack purpose. The wound already exists. Now ideology enters the picture. Institutions shift: schools, media, law, corporate culture, therapy culture. Masculinity begins to be reframed, not as necessary, but as dangerous. Patriarchy becomes a single story. Oppression, control, exploitation. Family becomes optional. Motherhood becomes a burden. Dependence becomes weakness. At the same time, women are taught something very specific: that they are oppressed by default, that history is against them, that independence is freedom, that needing anyone is failure. And men are taught something even simpler: that they are no longer needed, not as providers, not as leaders, not as protectors, not even as fathers. This doesn't create equality. It destabilizes cooperation. Feminization didn't create the wound. It just prevented it from healing. Here's the part most people don't really notice. Men didn't revolt. They didn't protest. They didn't overthrow anything. They just withdrew quietly from marriage, from commitment, from fatherhood, from long-term planning, from building, not out of hatred, out of calculation. Marriage becomes risk. Divorce becomes loss. Fatherhood becomes undervalued. Masculinity becomes suspect. So men adapt. They delay. They avoid. They disengage. And this part matters. When men withdraw from families, birth rates fall almost immediately. This isn't theory. Male employment, male purpose, and male engagement are some of the strongest predictors of marriage and fertility that demography has. Remove purpose, and families stop forming. If you think this only affects dating, wait until you see what it does to entire civilizations. There's another layer beneath ideology in economics: psychology. Modern people aren't just political, they're emotionally destabilized. Attachment disorders, avoidance patterns, hyper-independence, fear of dependence. We trained people to be emotionally autonomous and then asked them to build families. That doesn't really work. Now add the modern dating market on top of this. Choice overload, status inflation, short-term mating, situationships. A small number of men concentrate most access. Large numbers of men are excluded. Large numbers of women delay family formation. Pair bonding collapses. Even people who want children no longer form stable families fast enough to have them. Fertility falls before ideology even matters. Up to now, I've talked mostly about men. But this system doesn't break only one side. Women are collapsing too, just in a different way. Modern women are asked to carry more roles than any generation in history. Career-driven, financially independent, emotionally autonomous, and still expected to form families. Still expected to become mothers. Still expected to remain youthful. That collision alone delays reproduction, and biology quietly keeps moving in the background. Female fertility peaks in the early 20s, begins declining in the 30s, and falls sharply after 35. Modern culture delays family formation, past the biological window that makes it easy. By the time many women are ready for children, fertility is already working against them. There's one more structural problem. Modern societies produced large numbers of highly educated, high-status women, and fewer equally stable, high-status men. Female preference didn't change, but the male supply did. So large numbers of women delay partnership, not because they reject family, but because the mating market no longer clears, and delayed reproduction is often reproduction that never happens. There's something else happening in parallel. Male biology itself is changing. Sperm counts are collapsing. Testosterone levels are falling. Not because of ideology, because of environment. Sedentary life, obesity, chronic stress, sleep disruption, endocrine chemicals. Physical labor once regulated male biology. Competition once regulated hormones. Status once regulated identity. Modern life removes all three. Loss of purpose doesn't directly destroy biology, but it amplifies every force that does. Bodies soften, energy falls, reproductive capacity weakens. Civilizations rarely collapse only culturally. They often collapse biologically first. Now the system begins to fail structurally. When men withdraw, families decline. When families decline, birth rates decline. When birth rates fall below replacement, populations begin to collapse. This part is not political, it's mathematics. Every Western society is now below replacement. Europe, the UK, the US. Meanwhile, other regions still reproduce. Israel, parts of Africa, parts of the Islamic world, India. Power does not come from ideology, it comes from populations, and populations come from families. Collapse never happens evenly. History is very clear about this. When societies destabilize the masses, elites don't collapse with them. Elites still marry, still form families, still preserve networks, still think in bloodlines, and masses become atomized, delayed, childless, replaceable. And when labor collapses, when tax bases collapse, when military bases collapse, the solution is always the same: immigration, replacement, demographic substitution, not moral, structural. Late Rome did this, late Byzantium did this, late empires always do. They don't fix the culture, they replace the population and preserve themselves. There's a pattern here that shows up again and again in history. Hard conditions produce strong people. Strong people build stable societies. Stable societies create comfort. And comfort slowly removes the pressures that created strength in the first place. Less physical demand, less necessity, less competition, less biological selection. Bodies soften, institutions soften, cultures soften, reproduction slows, discipline weakens, identity fragments, and eventually, the society no longer reproduces itself. Not because it was conquered, but because it no longer needed to struggle. Civilizations that no longer struggle are eventually replaced by ones that still do, not through malice, through biology. So what's happening here isn't really a moral failure, and it isn't a political one, it's a structural one. When men and women stop cooperating, families collapse. When families collapse, birth rates collapse. When birth rates collapse, societies either replace themselves or disappear. Gender conflict isn't the cause, it's the symptom. Immigration isn't the cause, it's the response. Ideology isn't the driver, it's the justification. The mechanism itself is very simple. A society that removes purpose from its men weakens formation in its boys, trains one half of its population to see itself as victims, and the other half to see itself as unnecessary, will eventually stop continuing. Not dramatically, quietly. And the civilizations that replace it won't share its values. They'll simply inherit its infrastructure. This isn't collapse, it's succession.